Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to SP Reviews, where today I have the pleasure of reviewing a track by an act named Piero Luigi Carcerano titled Nostalgia. And if we switch over to here, I'm pretty sure it's Carcerano. It could be Carcerano or Carcerano. I apologize if I mispronounced that. I'm hoping one of those two is the case. But either way, we're going to listen through this track from start to finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Let's do it. Oh, nice build there with those strings, man. Beautiful tone to it. It's got like kind of a steel drum additional layer on top of those. There's a little bit of fizzy automation with the panning there. Is that supposed to be a plane?
Di un aeroplano. Guardo fuori e vedo il mare che fa malinconia. Vedo l'aurora arrivare.
I love the personality and charisma within the vocal performance. It works really well alongside the guitar and the drums. Everything sounds nice and pleasant.
Pensiero che vola quando ti parlavo sui gradini della scuola.
Very professional sounding, usually commercial grade quality in regards to studio production.
Ti lasciavo andare ai pomeriggi passati a parlare di sogni.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be familiar with the lyrics and what they mean, but there's an intense intensity and passion to the way that Piero is singing here, and I adore it to pieces. I think that it's exactly what you need to do in this case. You need to elevate yourself when you get into this hook section, whether it is a hook or a bridge, with a bit of those fizzy, distorted, overdriven guitars on the sides there. It's that thematic and musical development here. I really adore it.
Preoccupati di giocare solo con l'amore, mentre tutto scorreva via e parlavamo con il cuore.
Really simple harmony to follow along to with the vocal progression.
Un uragano.
A little bit of vibrato there with the vocal technique there. The guy's got chops in his head and chest voice. And I also just really appreciate what we're doing with the bass guitar there, how we have room for it in the mix. We're not trying to smother it. We're allowing it to have a bit more input. And it works really well as a contrast to the higher range of Piero with those singing parts on top. Haven't really got any complaints so far, you know.
Con quegli occhi grandi, come quella stella che si confonde con l'alba.
So soft, lots of dynamic range to the performance and the recording.
Il mio destino ha preso un'altra via. Sono qui solo a volare con tanta gente, ad abbracciare la notte che posso toccare con le dita. Sono in mezzo alla notte che copre il mare.
What I like about this part is that whilst we're having a similar approach to how we're doing the singing in regulation to like the different rhythms and the voicings of the various sentences and statements we're making, the real change is just a little bit of extra addition of that the mid-range strings on the side there on that left side. Not on the right because it will balance it out too much, but the strings poke their head out on the left side of the stereo field, and it's just a nice little bit of extra stuff going on in the second verse to elevate and keep the listener entertained and engaged.
Con il rumore che allontana.
Great punchiness to those snare drums. A little bit of a tom fill here as well to kind of bring it up.
Tra un caffè e un video musicale realizzo il mio presente, tutto quello che sono stato, tutto quello che non c'è, tutto quello che farò domani, tutto quello che ho cercato.
Broken chords work well, a great sense of drama and tension in this part. Twisting the tail, so to speak, you know?
Non aspetta chi non c'è. Sono in viaggio con il cuore. Mi piaceva raccontarti che ero un uragano. Eri bella con quegli occhi grandi, come quella stella.
I like how things sort of pan out a little bit and you've just got things coming down and being a little more quiet. I enjoy the way that sounds. It's scintillating. It really is. I think it's just great to have that much sort of dynamic range to a track and changes the perceived loudness and everything like that. It has changes in these energies that never leave it overbearing or like it's sounding overplayed.
Che sta cadendo a terra
Nice double tracking here. I think it works well alongside the, again, the separate rhythms with the sort of broken guitar, arpeggiated parts, and the eighth note drum grooves.
Come quella stella che si confonde con l'alba, che sta cadendo a terra, che sta cadendo a terra.
And it was kind of bringing it down to unify the unison note with those guitars on that last chord there. I mean, I'm inherently interested in this musician. I haven't listened to Piero Luigi Carcerano. Is it Carcerano or Carcerano? I'm sure I'm going to get told after this. At least I've said both, so I'm covered either way, right? But we were in and out within 3.5 minutes. It was so to the point. There was absolutely no filler here, was there? And this is the conclusion of my review of this track by Piero Luigi Carcerano titled Nostalgia. What do I think this track is about? I think this track is about someone looking back on their life and kind of debating what it was, remembering the things that made it special. I don't speak Italian natively, although I would like to. It's a beautiful language. I presume this is what the language of what the song was sung in. And I think that it does sound of someone who is looking back on and trying to sort of like make sense of it, and maybe a bit of, again, not just nostalgia, but also like a bit of love for it, a bit of care, a bit of warmth in there, something that sort of filled them up with joy, allowed them to sort of elevate beyond simply the mundane of the everyday life within the present. I think that Piero Luigi, I think we had someone here who was very confident and comfortable as a vocalist. They're very okay. They're very happy. How do I say it? Happy is not quite the word there, because this was definitely a bittersweet song. But they were at peace and accepting of themselves as a vocalist. They were very, very comfortable in the head and chest voice, so tremendous sort of vocal technique, especially working into those vibratos and legato passages and knowing exactly when to just hold those notes as more of an instrumental piece rather than like a storytelling device. We had variations of the way we expressed ourselves, with differences in the way we engaged the listener and the audience and the backing and sort of interacted just in general. There's a fantastic chemistry between not only Piero and the story that he was trying to tell, but also what was going on with the accompaniment. I think that there was a wonderful sort of synergy between those different elements of the mix. But it's important to note that I think that Piero was just incredibly interesting to listen to, not only because they could sing, not only because of the melodies and how he harmonized with the rest of the track itself and worked his way around the various different rhythms and everything else going on, but it's just also because he has a charisma, a charm to him that makes it very easy to listen to him, and you feel like it's more than just someone getting on stage for the first time and kind of stammering into a mic. This is someone who knows how to tell a story, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic. It's exactly what I want to have for a first impression with a new artist. I think that in addition to the vocals and how well they were done, and not a note off, by the way, the vocals were definitely a highlight of this piece. It's also just the way that we entered into it with the sort of the slow crescendo of those strings there, with the sort of warbler kind of synthy bits on the side, those little metal drums that kind of had a lovely sort of poetic resonance to them, a great coloration to them, coming into the more traditional elements of the guitars, the bass, and the drums alongside the strings, continuing to reinforce the intro theme and more later on. I think that with Piero, we had all our bases sorted in regards to a 3.5 minute song. I'm not quite sure what genre of music this would be. It's kind of like there's lots of different influences. I can hear some pop elements, some rock elements, some sort of classical elements as well. But it's okay. I'm sure that sometimes music doesn't need to fit into a box. It's Piero's music, and I think he absolutely smashed it out of the park. 3.5 minutes, it was more than long enough to fit a couple of verses and choruses in, as well as an interlude section where and there were bridges as well, as I understand it. There was simple, sweet movement throughout there. There was never hanging on a theme for too long. We had different chord progressions and bass lines throughout there to kind of help to identify and make things more distinct, which I really appreciate. It can be a shame when things are just kind of one note the whole time, especially if you're rolling on that one note root note for like 3 minutes. We didn't have that here. We had lots also range. Whether it was the different 8th and 16th note grooves on the drums, the different arpeggios and broken note parts on the clean guitars, or sort of like the more sort of palm muted guitars going into the rhythm parts with the distortion there, alongside the strings there that worked within the mid and high ranges there to kind of fill things out in those aspects on the sides, you know, to the bass line, which worked its way throughout the fretboard over the melodies and various scale shapes to really sort of assist the vocals and having a bit more sort of like a foundation to sit on, whilst also collaborating, coercing the drums and guitars to stay in time. And it was fantastic to listen to it. There was a lot of intricacy with the arrangement of the composition, but it never overshadowed what was going on with the vocals and the singing. I think that's why I mentioned before there was a great chemistry, a great synergy between the singing and the instrumental parts, because there just was, you know. We absolutely smashed it out of the park. I know I sound like I'm being quite positive. It's not because I feel the need to, but it's because this genuinely is commercial grade. There were no notes out of place there. It sounded very gentle, genuine and authentic. And it sounded like it was live recorded, and you really cannot ask for more than that. I don't know what we could necessarily done to improve this track. I think from a recording, mixing, and mastering perspective, the production side of things, you know, that is one of the best vocal recordings I've heard in a very, very long time. It sounds like I'm listening to someone on an old school vinyl. It's meticulous with the way that they were filtered and EQ'd, a little bit of reverb there, but not too saturated, having that sort of live tone to it. Again, alongside the careful double tracking of those guitar parts with great cueing, great clear resonance there. A very gentle distortion, a gentle sizzle to that part as well. But just how the strings came up, a complete amount of dynamic range there, a nice sort of presence of the drums there, but not interfering too much. And if there were fills, they sounded like they were recorded on an acoustic kit. They were punchy with the snares and kicks, but not too much on the toms. They had a bit more of a pad-like feel there. The bass had a great sort of identity within the song there. It didn't just need to roll with the root notes. You could hear it very clearly, and that's testament to the audio engineering and production, because it is not easy to get a bass to work well, especially when other elements have been recorded so eloquently. I think that comes down in part to the composition and arrangement, where like we chose instruments to play in different ranges to suit to work themselves within various niches of the frequency spectrum. And we also play stuff in the stereo field so not have too much attention in here or here, which is why, again, when we had things kind of close out a little bit just for the bass and the vocals, that made them all the more impactful, simply because we had the person in the center of the room, and then the rest of the band came in and filled up the stereo field. This is the kind of stuff that makes a good track great. It's that attention to detail, and that's that next level kind of, oh, I know we could just play the song, but what if we made it really special? It's just a really kind of unique, sort of unusual intro that I could not have expected going into nostalgia. Kind of like how the record layer kind of winds up and you start playing a film or something like that. It's almost like, you know, when the strings came up at the start, it was like a theater. You go to the theater, you hear the projector start to wind up, and then boom, you're looking into this person's life. It was nicely leveled and compressed. No issues with the mixing whatsoever with volumes. Again, as I mentioned several times, there's a lot of dynamic range there, which I appreciate. I think if you'd brickwalled this, it would have been thoroughly inappropriate. In that regard, the limiting on the master bus was great, nice and loud without pumping. And that is my review of Piero Luigi Carcerano, Carcerano's. Sorry, I apologize if I mispronounced. I know I've mispronounced one of those, because there's usually one way to pronounce a name. This is a review of their track Nostalgia. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go check out their various social medias and a Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands Out.